Commission. I'm Christy Gross with the Olmsted County Planning Department, and I'm going to give you one presentation for both requests, and then you can open the public hearings for each item separately and act on them separately.
Okay.
So I will be available if you have any questions throughout the meeting. So tonight we are here to talk about Olmsted County Land Use Plan Amendment O 2022-006 LUPA by Brendan Meyer and O 2022-007 LUPA by John McGuire, and this was a concurrent review. So the locations are pretty close together. They're within a mile of each other. So 006, the Meyer request, is south of Highway 14, which is south of Chester. 007, the McGuire property, is on the north side of Chester, south of County Road 9, and on the east side of 65th Avenue southeast. Meyer is west of that 65th Avenue and east of 60th Avenue. They both fall about 2 miles from the city of Rochester, and the closest village is that Chester area. Zoning for the property is for 006 LUPA, the Meyer property. It is located in Section 11 of Marion Township. It's zoned A3, which is the agricultural district, and the size of the request is 38.5 acres, and it's adjacent to the R1 low-density suburban residential property. It's also adjacent to some highway commercial along Highway 14 there. And then the RSD, the kind of purpley area that you see, is the Rural Service District, which is that hamlet little village of Chester. This is the Meyer concept plan. So the proposal is for 13 single-family residential lots. There would be a township road that serves the property, and access would be off of 60th Avenue Southeast. For 007, for the McGuire request, that property is located in Section 2 of Marion Township. It is zoned A2, which is Agricultural Protection District, and the property is 34.99 acres. That property is surrounded by A2 or A1 property. A1 is just north of the property, and that is also agricultural protection. The difference between the A1 and the A2 is the density that's allowed for homes. The A1 is our least dense property. A farm parcel is 80 acres. In the A2 district, a farm parcel is 35 acres. You can have one home per quarter section. In the A1 district, you can have one home per quarter in the A2 district. So those are the biggest differences between the A1 and A2 districts. The McGuire also submitted a concept plan for 10 single-family residential lots, also served by a township road, Irish Court. That road would come off of 65th Avenue Southeast, and there would just be one home that would access off of College View Road, but that would be through a shared driveway. The current land use designation for both sites is resource protection. You can see the Meyer property is adjacent to suburban development. The McGuire property is surrounded by resource protection. This is again the McGuire property, just zooming out so you can see around it that it is surrounded by other resource protection area. There was a transportation analysis completed for the properties. The Meyer property is on the left-hand side, and the travel shed that would serve the property is Highway 14. 007, the McGuire property, is on your right-hand side, and the travel shed that would serve that property is County State Aid Highway 9. And this was also part of the transportation report. What this image shows is for Marion Township. So it was the same analysis for both properties. So for Marion Township, 69% of the trips go towards Rochester, with 21% going east of the township. So 70% go west and 21 go east. The rest of it goes either north, south, northeast. Marion Township does have 30% lower trips per household average. That was something to note. The ordinance requires a level of service of C or higher for the roadway. And the McGuire property on County 9 has a level of service of A, and the Meyer property on on Highway 14 has a level service of B. So those are both within the parameters of level of service C.
Just a point of clarification then is, so A and B are both higher level of service than C. Is A higher than B then or not?
A is higher than B, yes.
Okay.
Both properties are in the low risk for having intersection conflicts. And so the transportation recommendation for both requests was that the existing roadway network would be able to accommodate the impact from either proposal. Other location criteria that we review is the proximity and access, which is addressed in the transportation recommendations, and both applications meet this request. We look at development limitations, and neither application have development limitations that they wouldn't be able to address during development. There's some floodplain that's located on the Meyer property that could be properly mitigated during platting and building processes. The environment.
What does mitigated mean?
Um,
I mean, I know what it means, but how do you do it?
how do you mitigate floodplain?
Yes.
You build outside of it, or you elevate the
Put a
homes
berm
out
or-
above it. Yep.
Thank you very much.
Yep. So environmental sensitivity, neither application had an abundance of environmental sensitivity. And the proximity to the airports, neither application is within or near the flight path for the Rochester International Airport. Was brought up at the Planning Commission meeting that there's a private airfield nearby, but it's not a public airfield. The locational criteria continued. One thing we look at is the resource protection score. And this is part of the comprehensive land use evaluation system model, which we review as, nope, this one you get a gradient score based on how the quality of agricultural land that is on the site. And so both of these properties scored in the higher quality. Meyer, which is on the left-hand side, had more of a mixture of scores, and that is because there's a smaller field on that property and a larger area of floodplain, so that reduced the scores on that property. McGuire's property is all tilled agricultural fields, so that had a higher score for resource protection on it. It's also surrounded by larger agricultural lots, while Meyer is surrounded by smaller non-farm parcels, which would reduce that score. The other locational criteria is how orderly is the development. So for this analysis, we looked at the suburban development score. The purple is more geared towards suburban development. Green is is not. And so you can see in this instance, the McGuire property scored higher for suburban development versus the Meyer property. And that is primarily because of the waterway that is running along. The Meyer property lowered the scores in that corridor. The white numbers on these maps represent the lot sizes. So what is the non-farm development around the request? The Meyer property is surrounded by non-farm parcels. Section 11 only has 2 farm-sized parcels located within it. Otherwise, it's adjacent to suburban development and that RSD district. The McGuire property is surrounded by agricultural tilled fields. Most of those are farm parcels. There are some non-farm parcels south of the property. Those are lots of record that have been in existence since the ordinance was in place. We reviewed the findings, and this analysis just shows which findings were satisfied. And so, was a mistake in the data used? Was there a mistake in the data at the time the application was adopted? Both of these applications, we say no. Have conditions of land use, land subdivision, or ownership or growth in the community changed in the character of the site and surrounding area? For the Meyer request, yes, there has been a change since the land use plan was adopted. The property south of this property was amended to suburban development and has been rezoned to rural residential. The Meyer property there, since writing the staff report, the biggest change is that there was a feedlot that was approved across the street from this site, so within a quarter mile. That would be the biggest change since the application. So at the time of writing this, we said no, but since writing the staff report, there has been a feedlot approved. Number 3, is the proposed amendment consistent with the policies of the general land use plan? The 006 Meyer property is consistent with the policies of the land use plan. It is adjacent to the suburban development area, while McGuire's property is not consistent with those policies. Number 4, have the policies related to the proposal change since the general land use plan was adopted? Again, no, nothing has changed for the Meyer property. That answer was yes for McGuire because the traffic was viewed differently with the land use plan update. And so that travel shed was taken into account, which is why the scores increased for the McGuire property. Number 5, is the land under consideration as suited or better suited for the proposed use than other lands now designated for the proposed use? For the Meyer property, we said yes, the land under consideration is just as good as other property that is determined to be suburban development. For McGuire, this was no, based on the adjacent to large farm parcels, the adjacent to the agricultural protection district. Number 6, is there an alternative to the proposed change that better meets the intent of the general land use plan? This answer is no for both applications. There's no way to accommodate their requests under the current zoning districts. Number 7, for the expansion of the suburban development area, how does the proposed amendment impact the amount of land needed? 006 is for 38.5 acres, and 007 is for 34.99, which is a total of 73.49 acres. And will the proposed land use result in a level of traffic generation that is higher than that associated with the residential uses? And both of these are no. The traffic planner has indicated that there's no concerns. So based on the findings of fact, planning staff recommend approval of O 2022-006 LUPA. And we did receive the letter of town board action. So Marion Township has indicated that they had no objection to the request. So it's not contingent on that anymore. We're just recommending approval. Based on the findings of fact, planning staff recommend denying O 2022-007 LUPA. And the Planning Commission held a public hearing on January 21st. They made a unanimous recommendation to approve the 006 LUPA for Brendan Meyer. And a motion was made and seconded to approve the 007 LUPA, but the motion failed due to a tie. So that moved forward without a recommendation. So your responsibilities is to open a public hearing for each item separately and act on them separately. And with that, I'll answer any questions you might have.
So does the board have any questions?
So procedurally, I have a question. So we open it, then we act on one before we open the second one? Or
Yes.
we open and close and then,
For clarity, I would open one public hearing, act on that request, open the next public hearing, and act on that request. Otherwise, I feel like you might get the public hearing portion
it's already
confused.
confusing enough, so yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna argue that point.
Yeah.
Can you go back about 4 slides to the one where they had purple? I'll tell you when you get there. That one. So I want to get this straight. So the purple is the better clue score, right?
It's the higher clue score for suburban development.
All right. So we have the south one is mostly green, and we're recommending approval on that, and the north one is mostly purple. We're recommending denial on that.
Sure. Yeah. We're also recommending approval based on the resource protection score, which is darker on this property.
But isn't that
So
part of the clues?
the overall clue score, this is just one piece of the clue score. The overall clue score is a composite of these different pictures that I gave you. And the overall composite scores both of these properties fairly similar. And the clue score is just one piece. So the clue score is a computer model and the locational criteria that planning staff analyze look at the larger picture rather than just that immediate property.
I can understand all that, but I mean, from my perspective, when I look back the amount of resources that we have put towards holding on to and developing these clue scores, it's still hard for me to understand how something can have a higher clue score and then get an opposite result of what that clue score. Because the clue score is for orderly development, and so if it scores higher for orderly development, in my mind, then that should be something that we look at favorably as compared to something that scores lower. So I have a hard time wrapping my mind about that. We'll go back to other things, I'm sure. But
Are there any other questions from the board? Yes, go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Ms. Gross, on the Myers property, the suggestion at least is that we would move forward and approve that as suburban development. And if we do that, does that include that area that is included in floodplain? Because it is. I mean, I don't see anything here that suggests it's not. Would we really approve floodplain area as suburban development?
Yes, because it can be managed and there are regulations for how homes can be built in the floodplain.
Mr. Chair and Ms. Gross, you mean like put a house on stilts, or I mean,
No, there's plenty of area that is out, and everything that you see in green there is not floodplain. The floodplain boundary is over the site, but there's areas to build outside of the floodplain.
But we would technically be including or designated as suburban development a floodplain area. Is that right?
Yes. Yep. You've also designated, it would be similar to other properties that you've designated suburban development throughout the county.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Can I ask another
Go ahead,
question?
sure.
I want to know what the difference is between agricultural lots that are averaging 10 acres in site as compared to non-farm lots, which are approximately 10 acres in site. So on the north site, we cite the property to the south as agricultural lots. But on the south project, we take 10-acre lots and we say that they're non-farm. So what's the difference between those 10-acre farms and non-farms if they're both 10-acre lots with one home on them?
You are correct. Yep. They're both non-farm parcels. I was simply stating that the north property was surrounded by more farm-sized parcels, which are over 35 and 80 acres, and the south property did not have the farm parcels that size.
Well, that'll agree with you on that. That's factual. But on the previous slide, you had the 10-acre lots to the south and the north. And this is how confusing it gets. To the south of the north site, listed as if they were agricultural lots, whereas on the south site, the 10-acre lots are listed as if they're non-farm lots. I mean, they're all essentially 10-acre lots. So I'm trying to figure out why.
Well, on the south side, those are zoned agricultural.
I know, but they're not agricultural.
But they are zoned agricultural. They are, excuse me, Commissioner, they are zoned agricultural. They are lots of record that have been in existence. They're not zoned residential. If there is a feedlot on one of those lots.
But on the south site, again, south of the south site, those 10-acre lots, I believe some of them have horses on them too. So I mean, they make this. They look like a duck. They smell like a duck. They walk like a duck. They look like ducks to me. All both of them.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
All
So
right.
I'm just trying to get clarification.
All right. Are there other questions from the board? I have a question. So, on the McGuire site, east of that, are there not lots that are not agriculture already on County Road 9? I mean, or a business. There's a propane.
And that's a conditional use permit. It's still zoned agricultural, and that's a conditional use permit for that business.
Conditional, but it's been there for years, so the conditions lasted a long time. But it's also surrounded by agriculture.
Correct. We have several businesses within the agricultural district throughout the county that are allowed for various purposes. They're often agriculturally related.
Okay. All right. Are there other questions? They may think of some later, so you may be back.
I'm not going too far.
All righty. Thank you very much. All right, we are at the point now where we're going to open up for the public hearing, and there is a sign-up sheet somewhere. You have that. I'll just let you take that, and then remember that you have 2 minutes.
Do you want to specify what we're talking about?
Yeah, I will. And you have 2 minutes to do this. We have a timekeeper there. And of course, we have received many comments in writing, which we appreciate as well. So the board has read those as well. So, and we're going to do the Land Use Plan Amendment 02022-006 LUPA, which is the Brendan Meyer proposal first. All right, so who's first on the list?
Virginia Wright Peterson.
Virginia Wright Peterson, a familiar person to our board. Very good.
Yes, but thank you. My name is Virginia Wright Peterson, and I live at 1320 60th Avenue, the property immediately to the south of the property being considered for the land use change tonight. When I submitted my concerns about the request at the Planning Advisory meeting last month, I only submitted my concerns about the potential impact on water levels, noting that the property is very wet. I was not aware of the 2022 Annual Development Review Report for Olmsted County, which was just completed in January. And the information and conclusion of this report did not receive much discussion at the Planning Advisory meeting, and staff didn't note it tonight. I want to make sure that it's fully considered this evening. The conclusion of that report states, quote, currently Olmsted County has more than enough land in the unincorporated urban areas and suburban development areas to serve its projected population for many years to come. If land is to be converted from resource protection to suburban development, there's no going back. County staff and officials must be confident that any land use map amendments approved meet the goals and policies of the county's planning documents. It's my understanding from this report that there are already 4,900 acres available for development, and it would seem that the county should be very careful in what it designates in the future, choosing only what is the very best fit for suburban homeowners and for the county to support. This property is not optimal for homes. In addition to the wetlands and other environmental issues, it's along a busy highway and just that are a few feet away from railroad tracks. I can hear the wheels of train cars on the rails every time a train passes, and this development would be much closer to the tracks than I am. There's also a sportsman's club nearby, and we hear shooting in the afternoons and several times during the week. And while the traffic safety report is included in staff's report, as someone who drives through that intersection every day, there's a significant traffic hazard that was not noted in the report. I honestly would have to say, and this is hard for me to say, I wouldn't live there if it weren't for the fact that I'm on family property and it has sentimental value. To further support that there's already enough land, there's another development, Stone Lake on County Road 9, that has had lots available for years. That they have not completely sold. All of the amenities are being developed more in the northeast part of Rochester, getting to a bank, grocery store. It's just not an optimal place.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Who is next on the list?
Brendan Meyer.
Brendan Meyer.
Good evening, Commissioners. I want to thank Christy and the staff board for getting everything together on this application. I want to thank the Commissioners for taking the time to review this, consider this tonight. I know one of the things that has come up, I'll address this, is the water. There's a creek that does run through the property. From the very beginning, working with Elliot on the board, we've been considering this, going over the floodplain that does exist, ways to mitigate water. One of the ways that we planned on, earlier there's a map that showed the road that would be coming in. The road would be as far south from the water as possible. Homes would be as far away from that water as possible. If anything has to be built up, stormwater runoff, et cetera, et cetera. And the other point is to the very east where the creek starts to cut in. We know that there is more of a wetland area over there, and the plan was that those would be larger lots carved out on the end. Same with the lots to the north where the creek is included. That creek would be part of the land that the homeowners would have, but the building sites would be well away from that creek, well outside of that watershed. So that is something that we have considered and something that would certainly be taken under consideration. So as the applicant, I guess I wanted to see if there are any questions for me or not.
Did anybody have any questions for Mr. Meyer? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Who's next on the list?
Christina Wright Peterson.
Christina.
Good evening. I'm not as well spoken or prepared as my mother, but I am Virginia Wright Peterson's daughter. For about the last 6 months, my mother and I have walked through the incredibly tedious and inequitable process of having our family land split into 2 5-acre lots so that I could eventually live on that property to care for her, which is eventually our goal. And I just wanted to share with you that I can't keep track of all of the meetings we've been to because there have been so many, but the feedback from Marion Township and from you as commissioners and others that have listened is that they appreciated the fact that the larger lots allowed a transition into the more suburban area on that east side of 60th Avenue. That was what we were specifically told that they liked about our proposal, and that the fact that we are taking 10 acres and leaving it into 2 5-acre lots versus going smaller. So I would like you, as you're considering this, to think about those of us that will be living there and what that feels like. It is not an easy place to live. I've lived there since my mother was there permanently since 2000, and I grew up there with my grandfather. It is not easy. We do it because it is a sentimental value and it's family land. But I don't think it is what some people are envisioning it will be like. So thank you.
Appreciate that. Who's next on the list?
There's nobody else on this list.
All right, I will ask one more time if there's anybody else who wishes to speak for or against the proposal. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak for or against the proposal? Is there anybody else who wishes to speak for or against the proposal?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say no. All right, the public hearing is closed. Now we're at the point of accepting a motion regarding the issue at hand.
Well, I'm a little perplexed how we got to a recommendation on this parcel being a development, but I support this development and make a motion to approve it based on findings of fact for the staff.
Okay, I have a motion.
I'll second.
I have a second. All right, so my understanding is that at this vote, we have a motion and a second. And if there is a majority of the board that votes for this motion, then this development is approved to go forward to the next step. All right, so all in favor?
Mr. Chair, could I just ask a question?
Yes, sir. Yes.
With this vote, we are essentially, well, we are, if it is approved, designated suburban development. I have concerns about just the environmental aspects of this with the wetlands and the stream and things like that. I think they can be mitigated, but can these mitigations that I might be thinking about be put into effect in the general development plan if it comes forward?
All right, so I'm going to ask, because actually we can go over the process too, and we might need our county attorney to help us with this. But basically, this changes the designation on the map, but it does not approve the development of that. That still has to come back. That still has to pass the town board. It still has to pass us, and those mitigation plans must be accepted within the next level of plan. Did I say that correctly? All right, Ms. Gross says yes, that is correct. You want to come up and just clarify the next step here?
Yep. So the level of detail you see at the land use plan is pretty minimal. With each application, you'll see more and more material. So the general development plan will come back and will show some of those things. You get the most detail at the preliminary plat stage. And so you may not see everything you want to see, but they'll highlight things that must be addressed. And then the preliminary plat would show easements and would show, would highlight all of those features that you're looking for.
And generally, the planning commission will add contingencies to their plan that also has to be met if it's not included in their plan.
Correct. The GDP and the preliminary plat can have conditions on them to address those concerns.
All right,
I can't remember. Do both the GDP and the preliminary plat come in front of this board?
The general development plan does with along with the zone change. The preliminary plat ends at the planning commission.
Okay.
all right,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
does it not end up here?
No.
We don't get to approve the general development plan?
You approve the general development plan. The preliminary plat is approved by the planning commission.
Mr. Chair, just to kind of square up with the group.
Yeah,
I would be personally hard pressed down the road, so to speak. This is just me. You don't have to agree. But the idea of putting, I don't know, is it 12 or I think 13 septic systems next to, within some proximity to this wetland and river, small as it might be, is a concern to me. And so I would, with a following vote or next vote, be hard pressed to approve it absent a community sewer system, septic system, not unlike what we have in Orinoco or had in Orinoco, still do. That's monitored professionally, and you know the results, the data are recorded within, I think, the county system.
okay.
That is just where I am, and so if I would move to amend later on at some point that motion, be it pass or not, I don't know. That's up to you, the rest of you. But would I have a chance to make that motion?
Okay, I don't, the truth is I don't know. That's why sometimes we have the county attorney here, or Tom Kinnan, which Tom Kinnan is not here.
Tom is
Here
here.
is,
Tom's here.
all right, Tom, can you answer that question, please?
Yes, and I'll defer to Christie partially, but I would say that it's premature to basically make that determination because we're not at that stage. When the matter is up for a general development plan and a preliminary plat, that's when a determination would be made about the feasibility of the septic systems and whether or not it can support individual septic systems or a community septic system. But you really have to just rely on the criteria that the staff has identified in the staff findings at this point. So there'll be a point to make that determination. I'm just suggesting we're not at that point yet.
And Mr. Chair, I understand that. I just want to know, will I personally, as a commissioner, have a chance to be at that point with a motion? May or
At
may
the
not
time-
pass. I understand that.
At the time of the consideration of the general development plan, yes, you should have the ability to weigh in on that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Tom. Anybody else have a question? It's all right if we proceed with the vote then. We have a motion and a second. We've had discussion, we've had questions. So all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. All right, the motion carries. Very good. All right, so we will move to the second one then, the land use plan amendment 02022-007 LUPA, which is John McGuire's proposal. So, who, do we have the list here? No,
1 second.
okay. The list is,
Being modified as we speak.
okay, we're waiting here. Somebody's writing very rapidly.
Just have a point of clarification,
Yes.
Chair. In the past, we haven't put a timer on the applicant. You know, it seems odd that we would have the applicant be on a 2-minute timer when they're explaining what they're applying for.
All right, so what's your suggestion?
That we ought to let the applicant plead their case, and then the people could have 2 minutes to plead for or against. That's what we've done in the
All right.
past.
That's fine with me. So who is speaking? Is the applicant the first one on the list?
No, he's not, but we can move him to the.
Yeah, what, if that's all right with people, we'll move the applicant to the first one on the list, all right? And are you speaking for the applicant then?
I am, yes. My name is Jason Cappers. I'm with G-Cubed Engineering. We're the civil engineers for this property.
All right,
I just have a quick handout I'm going to hand out to you guys. Just has my notes so you can follow along, so I'm going to go kind of quick.
Thank you.
All right, so as I mentioned, my name is Jason Cappers with G-Cube Engineering, representing the applicant. Our address is 14070 Highway 52 Southeast, Chatfield, Minnesota 55923. I want to say, first off, thank you. I think you made my job a little bit easier tonight approving the first one, given that that had a suburban development clues model score of 22, and the proposal in front of you has a suburban development clues model score of 70. With that said, let's start going through my notes here. So the first one, a little bit of history. This went before the Marion Town Board on September 13th, 2022, and the Town Board approved it unanimously. Second point, this went before the County Planning Advisory Commission. As Christy mentioned, it had a 3-3 vote, but Dean Hilsman, he's a Planning Advisory Commission member. He was absent from the meeting, and he wrote Commissioner Wright via email on January 29th, 2023. If I could have you go to page 100 of the staff report.
yeah. Mr. Hillestad is the chair of that committee.
What's that?
Mr. Hillestad is the chair of that committee.
Yeah, he's the chair, and he's absent from that meeting. Maybe this is not the right. What I'm looking for is an email correspondence from the chair to Mr. Wright.
Yeah, it's part
My
of.
notes, it was page 100.
You got it?
Keep going.
The chair is Paige Collins.
Well, the chair's Paige Collins.
Right here.
Right here it is.
So I'll just read this. You can scroll down just a little bit so they can see the message. As a member of the Olmsted County Planning Advisory Commission, I recommend approval of the amendment from John McGuire. It has the approval of Marion Township, a high clue score, and a low traffic impact. Respectfully, Dean Hilsman. I mentioned that it was a 3-3 vote, but it would have been a 4-3 vote had he been present at the meeting. I think that's important to note. My next point is that approval of both 006 LUPA and 007 LUPA. They're both well under the 200-acre annual limit of allotting land to suburban development. I believe it's around 73.8. That table is shown on page 40 of the staff report. Again, my pages might be off by 1 or 2. The next point is page 94 of the staff report states that there is currently 247.4 acres of platted land that is currently unbuilt. And I'd like you to go to page 111 of the staff report. It was from Randy Staver. Let's scroll up a little bit, maybe, or down. There we go, perfect. So we can scroll down just a little bit. Keep going. It's going to be on the second page, I do believe. It's the last paragraph, or last bullet point. Right there, perfect. So I'll read that one. This is a quote from Randy Staver, noted. He's a former city council president for the city of Rochester.
And he's currently the secretary
For the Rochester Township.
Rochester Township.
Correct, yep. So quote, a point against approval is that there is currently 247.4 acres of platted land that is currently unbuilt. That said, I believe that would also be a criterion for denial of the Meyer project. However, this is a more realistic point in that there may be 247 acres unbuilt, but a quick survey of available parcels or lots on the east side of the county near Rochester demonstrates a very limited supply. In short, there's demand, but supply is limited. So our client is intending to move forward as soon as possible with entitlement, platting, and construction. So these lots are not going to sit and not going to add to this figure that you just saw. I spoke with our client beforehand, and he already mentioned that 5 lots are already spoken for. So this is not going to add to that figure. Next point, this proposal meets all transportation criteria, and the county has reported that the transportation network can safely accommodate the traffic generated from the development. That's indicated in the staff report as well. Back to the clues model. So the past application, loop application, was in August of 2019. This was denied as it was considered premature, given that the general land use plan update hadn't yet occurred. Since then, the general land use plan has been updated along with the clues score, and clues strongly supports that suburban development for this property much more than the proposal you guys just approved. That was shown as a table on page 43 of the staff report. I think if you can go to that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. I think that's your point. That was your point.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right here. No. Keep going down. Go back up a little bit. It was a different table in mine. But anyway, the table that I was alluding to had the suburban development score for the prior project that you just approved as 22, and this project before you is 70. Obviously in favor of suburban development. So moving on, I've read through all the letters that were submitted in opposition of this project from adjacent neighbors, legal counsel, and other folks, both residing within Marion Township and outside of Marion Township. And the only really negative thing that I had to say, both in the staff report and major emphasis, is that the location is surrounded by large farms / is not contiguous to existing non-farm development. I'd like to go through some of these letters, if possible, that were submitted. On my notes, I have page 101, so it might be a couple pages after that. Perfect, right there. That's the first one. So it's about halfway through that paragraph. I'll just read it verbatim. This letter is from Alan and Amy Hartman. About halfway down, it says, there are many other areas within Olmsted County and even within Marion Township that are more conducive to this type of subdivision, as they are already next to an existing subdivision or have other infrastructure in place that supports the subdivision. So that's just one of the notes. Page 102, the next page. So keep rolling. It's close to the bottom. Perfect, right there. So this is from Tyler and Ashley Thurner and family, quote, this is, again, at the last paragraph, probably a few sentences up from the bottom. Quote, there are many good areas for subdivisions in Olmsted County due to terrain, better use for poor quality land, or location next to existing developments, allowing for orderly expansion. So again, those are kind of hitting on the same point. Go 7 pages down to, I'll tell you when. Well, you jumped pages back to 70. It should be like 109 to...
Yeah, you're on 78 now. What happened?
Okay, right there. Scroll up just a little bit. Perfect. And this is from Mark Delahanty, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and Martha Bowman. So it's the first sentence of that paragraph that you see on the top. So allowing a residential cluster in the middle of an agricultural preserve diminishes a broad area, not just adjacent properties, end quote. And then the first sentence of the second paragraph you see, quote, all Olmsted County benefits, not just us and our neighbors, when contiguous tracts of agricultural land are preserved in close proximity to Rochester, end quote. And then go down 6 pages is a letter from Jason Wagner. Scroll up just a little bit, actually. Right there on that page. Scroll down a little bit. Perfect. So this is a letter from Jason Wagner with Wagner Euler, LTD, Legal and Title Services. I'm not sure, but I believe he is an attorney. So it is the last sentence of the first paragraph you see there. So quote, in other words, the property is completely surrounded by agricultural property and agricultural zoning, as shown in figure 3 of the report set forth below. So what all of these opposition letters have in common is they're talking about location and not orderly development. It's not contiguous, but in reality, it is. On that exhibit I showed you, or I gave you, you can see where I colored in. Chester is just to the south, and the parcels that I colored in they do not meet A2 zoning. I think that was discussed just prior. I can just basically have this on record. So under the Olmsted County zoning ordinance, the A2 zoning density, district density, allows for 2 parcels per quarter. So that's 1 farm and 1 non-farm. So that's essentially 35 and a 5 and a 40. So between Chester and the development, there are roughly 9 parcels of record and roughly 80 acres. This is over twice the density allowed in the A2 district, clearly not conforming to the A2 zoning criteria, and clearly not large farm parcels as outlined by the neighbors. So Irish Ridge is a continuous and orderly extension of development from the south. And in closing, I'd just like to reiterate the fact that this proposal does have a suburban development clues index score of 70, and the one you just approved has a clues index score of 22. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, then let's take the first one on the list, please. Who is that?
Mr. Bowman?
Mr. Bowman. You just give us your name and your address, please.
Yes, I'm Darrell Bowman, 306 65th Avenue Southeast. I live right on the south end of this area that you want to change. I've been there for 56 years. And when we were made 10 acres, there was no rules like there are today. They allowed us to buy the 10 acres. We had less than 3 acres tillable, so they just turned it over. We're ready for you. So it wasn't that hard back in those days to get 10 acres. It's a half mile long. Anyway, I urge you to vote no. The neighborhood is not really ready for this. I believe that this is unnecessary. And you're going to hear some really good reasons, I'm sure, why we don't want it as a neighborhood. So I'm going to leave it at that. Is there any question? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bowman. Who's next?
Greg?
Greg, is that a first name or last name?
First name,
Well, all
Greg
right.
Childs.
Very good,
I
Greg
live on
Childs.
1016 Chester Avenue. I've been up there living in Chester for 26 years, and I have a business up there, Rochester Precision Machine, and we developed that on farmland. That was that many years ago. Went through all the motions that these guys are going through, and I'm the board member of the Chester Heights Sewer District, so I do my thing for that. We keep an eye on that and try to get involved with the community there. So our business there was, we were going through when the sewer come in, so we had a lot of things to do. These guys here drilled our well, we had to do our own sewer hookups, all that kind of thing. Progress is good. In my opinion, anytime you can bring good housing, a development like that into our area that I live in and produce my parts in and raise my family in is going to do nothing but help us. I think the taxes that'll bring in are going to help. Everything we're living on out there was farmland at one time. It all gets developed. Our business is no different. So, in my opinion, I like the idea, and that's my opinion. So that's what I got.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thank you.
Up next is Tim Lawler.
Sign of aging.
All right.
Thank you and good evening. I'm Tim Lawler. I reside at 2108 11th Avenue Northwest in Rochester. I'm also a partner with my brother Steve and Lawler Family Farm. This farm manages a cow-calf enterprise, produces cash grain, forages, including pasture management of sufficient acres to support the cow herd. Our cropland and fall grazing include land that's located at the junction of County Road 9 and 70th Avenue, northeast, going west on 9 to 119, which goes south to Chester. It includes additional land where we work with my nephew Joe, comprising about 150 acres of farmland. It also includes the University of Minnesota research plot that began in 1986. I oppose the proposed zoning change from A2 to subdivision development. This proposal will change and adversely affect our manure management program. We use organic fertilizers, composted turkey manure, cattle manure, complemented with commercial fertilizer to balance the nutrients. Storage areas for these fertilizers are needed. Availability varies on their purchase, and application is extremely weather sensitive. The proposed zoning change will increase our liability potential within our cow-calf and feedlot acres. The proposed change will be a financial burden to our business, which including increasing the cost of production, limiting our ability to implement the best management practices in crop production and cow herd management. The University of Minnesota research plot will also be adversely impacted. The research includes crop protective chemicals and making recommendations to farmers for best use practices, the goal being to limit the impact on the environment while providing an adequate, safe food supply. The proposed change would establish an unacceptable precedence for future conversion of a high productive agricultural land into suburban developments. In fact, the goals of land stewardship and production are all too often in conflict with the goals of suburban residents. This proposed changing development rezoning is in conflict, in my opinion, the Olmsted County Land Use Plan, the zoning ordinances, and the county's long-term land use guidelines. You received several letters accompanied from the University of Minnesota to support this, in my opinion, and I appreciate the time to speak and your consideration of the issues.
Thank you, Mr. Lawler.
Tom Giordano.
Can we get one of the pictures up of the subdivision or around it? My name's Tom Giordano. I live at 2837 Tea Time Road, Southeast, Rochester, Minnesota. I've been a 33-year resident of Rochester, and I'd like to thank everyone here for listening. I just wanted to cover a few points that I think are key. First of all, that this is a small, low-density subdivision. It's not breaking up any existing farmland or parcel. It's phase 1 of 1. It's not a beginning phase that's going to go on and on and on like some other places. So I think it's well fits this area. And if you look here, and this is maybe some of the things that Mr. Tyne was talking about, there are adjacent properties to the south and to the north, that little cutout piece, that are single-family homes. According to the tax records, they're Class 1A, 4, BB1. So they're residential single unit and also single family. So that is the property to the south of that, the property that's that little cutout, and then there's a couple other properties that are nearby that are all in that same classification. There are some others that are south of that and around that are agriculture and others, but as I look at this is an extension of Chester, and if you go all the way up 119, there's multiple properties that are homes, and then you've got another home that's right next to that.
Okay.
Okay. And just in closing, the property owner wants to develop the land. It's got a great clues score, and we really can't consider unavailable property for development. That we should go ahead with what we have. The other last point is, if there are farm chemicals that are dangerous to the neighbors, there's plenty of neighbors here that were affected today, and I don't think that's going to necessarily change or impact the next set of neighbors. So thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
Joe Lawler?
Joe Lauder, 1668 Wilshire Drive, Northeast Rochester, Minnesota, 55906. I was told, first off, when we stopped that time, that we all had, everybody had 2 minutes, including the McGuires. I was told that by you, Mr. Wright.
Yes. Go ahead. Speak.
Okay, I just think that that was very unfair that that was pulled on us. Okay, so my name is Joe Lawler. My wife and I own and operate 90 acres directly north of this property. I respectfully ask you guys to consider the planning department's recommendations to vote no for this. I think that we really need to understand that the clues model is only a small piece, like the planning department said, to the report. It's a very small piece. The other pieces are all pieces that are legal. They all come from the general use plan. They come from the ordinances, which were written based on state blueprint law that they were given to the county to write both of these. So these recommendations are not, we can't even call them recommendations. Some of them we can, the clues model, but when we start talking about orderly development and we start talking about ag land protection districts, these are protected at the state level. This is not Olmsted. You know, Olmsted County cannot make new rules on ag protected ground. One of these two, you know, we can go right down to the general land use plan, and it says right there, it says suburban development zones should be separated from incompatible land uses such as feedlots. I have 108 cattle 120 feet away. I spread 40 semi-loads of turkey manure on this land. The prevailing wind in the winter is from the northwest. They're going to smell every stinking piece that comes out of that cow. And it says right here, incompatible. Incompatible, the definition of incompatible is, it's defined as unable to exist together in harmony. That's right in your general land use plan. And we keep talking about these lots below. Okay, 10 of them we say. There are 5 owners here. There's only one 10-acre parcel that is owned by one individual. The next 3 are owned by a father and his daughter. The next 2 are owned by another individual who has his home right down the middle of this lot. And last are 40 acres owned by one individual. We need to stop calling, and they all file Schedule Fs on their taxes for farm. So the G cubed is definitely misrepresenting them. These are farm parcels, just like I'm a farm parcel. I'm a beginning farmer. My family has been farming this land for 165 years, okay? When land changes hands in our neighborhood, it goes to the neighbor, the son, or the daughter. Mr. McGuire is a neighbor. He owns a house down the road. And he admitted in the last meeting that he couldn't build a house on A1 district because Haverhill wouldn't do it, because Haverhill protects their ag land. I would like if you guys would pull up some of the letters, including one from the University of Minnesota, to show everybody here. This land is the best land. The average in Olmsted County for farmland is a rating of 71 in Olmsted County. This land is 77. Marion Township is 58. This is the top 1 or 2% of farmland in Marion Township. But it's probably $100,000 in tax revenue too. But that is not the point. The point is, it says in your general use plan and the ordinance that you do not pass this. And when the general, what's the plan we were talking about for the after this is passed?
GDP, General Development Plan.
Could we pull up the 6 criteria to that? Is that possible? Because there's 6 criteria. One of them is spot zoning, and the other 5 I can't remember. But this does not pass not one single one of those characteristics that is necessary to be an amendment. So you're going to rezone this and then say, oh, it's already R2 or whatever. But now we can't do anything with it. But now it's zoned that way. This cannot go past this meeting anyway. Why are we here? I ask you to look it up. I really do, Mr. Tyne. It is there. So anyway, I have one last comment. I probably went over by a long shot, but I think we need to think of Ag Protection District differently. Okay? These are meaningful words. Protected, ag protected. These zones are a promise from Olmsted County on behalf of the public that you will value the most valuable farmland. You will take care of it, and you will protect it into the end, until we are right there at the corner of Rochester. You're supposed to protect us from all of those who want to take advantage of our properties. This is beautiful farmland. This is the best of your farmland. And what happens on this farm, like my Uncle Tim said, with research, is invaluable to all agriculture in Minnesota. Thank you for your time. I apologize for...
Sir, I appreciate your passion. Just wanted to let you know, Mr. Lawler, that I did give you an additional 3 minutes of time.
Well, they have like 10, but I'll take that as a... Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Okay, Jason Wagner?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jason Wagner. I am an attorney at Wagner Ehler Law Firm, and I reside in Marion Township. I just want to make a couple points here. To approve this application, you must have a finding that the current zoning was either a mistake when it was passed, or that there is no reasonable use of the land as it is currently zoned. The County Planning Department has already answered both of those questions as no. It is points 1 and 2 in the criteria. We also have testimony from the University of Minnesota, the Minnesota Department of Agriculture, the Lawler family, and others in the neighborhood. Each have pointed to data and facts that show that the current zoning is necessary. Each has shown how they have relied on the zoning ordinance. Each has reiterated that this is the best farmland in the world and will continue to be if managed properly. Each has shown that this is a neighborhood that is not becoming less agricultural, it is becoming more agricultural. And that is happening through private investment, public-private partnerships, and publicly funded grants. The property has a crop production index that is 1.5 times greater than the average in Marion Township. Olmsted County has some of the best farmland in the state, in the country, and in the world. And yet this property has been found by the Minnesota Department of Agriculture to have even better farmland than most of the farmland in this county. Based on that criteria alone, there is no other use in the world that would be better than as a farm property and protected by agricultural zoning. In our view, it would be irrational and irresponsible to convert this to single-family housing. We respectfully request that you deny the application.
Jerry Moriarty?
Hi, guys. Hi. You stand in front of this one, would
You
you?
need to use the microphone, please, because we're recording.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Here?
Yep,
Can you hear me?
You got it. I can hear you.
I actually used to do public presentations. I'm Jerry Moriarty, and I live at 5425 College View Road on County Road 9. It used to be called Moriarty Hill. We've been out there since 1854. I've been out there since, I guess, 90. I raised my family out there. A couple of things that I think we're missing here is this clues model. The guy who does it doesn't live here. He reads computers. And if you pull out of my driveway, I invite you all to come out and try to pull out of my driveway and not pull over because the cars are coming by so fast. We got so much traffic on that road, and I've witnessed this traffic all my whole life. It's just ever since we redid the road, it's just a speedway. We've got semis, we've got everything you can imagine that was on 14, they take a shortcut and they come down 9. Anything more to increase that amount of traffic is dangerous, in my opinion. And nothing in the clues map mentioned 40-foot combines. We have ag machinery out there throughout the growing season. And it's really dangerous if you don't pay attention to it. And I would like to make that a note as you're trying to add more houses and more cars and more traffic to that. It makes it more dangerous to myself and my family. And as far as the land use goes, I mean, that's karst down there. Everybody knows that. Sinkhole land. I'm not quite sure why my a cousin of mine used to own that farm. And he drank it. He drank it. So what did they do? They put in a trailer park. So that was a mistake in the 60s and the 50s when they put that in. So now we keep referring to that as some sort of urban development. Really, the county had to come out and put in a drain or a sewer line because all the facilities out there were draining off and polluting the water. So we've made some investment out there, but I don't think you could call that, the type of tax generating urban development that we'd like to see. So it is what it is, and people live there. It's a proud place to live, but to build off of it, I think, is a mistake. In the corner up there where the proposed development for this is it's dangerous as it is. People do not slow down. I can tell you that right now. It's a 70-mile-an-hour road. It's not a 55-mile-an-hour road. It's a 55-mile-an-hour zone for 55, but people fly through there. And if you go ahead and improve this, it's going to increase the danger up there for that. And as far as I'm just half a mile from this, and I guess I've got great farmland and I'm lucky, but we've been paying for taxes for you guys for, since 1850. So, I think the land use plan should stand because you did a thorough analysis of everything and it's a good plan. And Haverhill, we wrote our own land use plan, more restrictive. And so if you take a look at the outlines of the city of Rochester, you see that it doesn't encroach into Haverhill because we have restricted for farmland. So we're pro farmland out there. But it's played out well. We've got clean water, clean air, and one last thing I'll say, there's 4 or 5 feedlots around there. And I've seen what happens if you put the manure on the wrong time of the year, all hell breaks loose. And you don't want to do that. And fortunately, we've got good farmers who don't do that now. But there have been mistakes. And if you put some houses out there with some city people, holy crap, you're going to have the police out there, you're going to have people screaming, you're going to have litigation. And that's not going to go well. So and both sides of this property are not going to be developed. The owners are here. I know them. They don't plan on developing. We plan on keeping it ag. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ashley Thiemer? Ashley, okay.
Scubs.
Before I start, could I have the map that shows with the parcels to the south that we keep referring to? Yeah, the last one, the one you were just on was fine. Yeah. Good evening, my name is Ashley Tyner. I currently live at 420 65th Avenue Southeast, which is about a quarter mile from the property in question. However, I grew up at 320 65th Avenue Southeast. I've spent my entire life there. I'm here to speak in opposition of the land use plan amendment on the McGuire property. I feel that a subdivision in this area would be inconsistent with the surrounding properties and the existing agricultural zoning of the properties, as well as the agricultural characteristics of the general area. The general land use plan stipulates that the land use amendment should not put the property in question in conflict with the surrounding properties. Based upon the comments from previous meetings, I'd like to address the concerns about the comparison of the existing parcels to the small lot subdivision that is being proposed. I want to clarify that all of these parcels to the south of the property in question are zoned agriculture and are in fact currently used for agriculture. In addition, all of the properties have outbuildings associated with the raising of livestock. This obviously differentiates these properties from the lots of the property being proposed. If you take a look at the map, I'd also like to point out that the 2 tax parcels that are owned by Mr. Johnson, so those are the 2 that are the long rectangles right next to each other, that's owned by the same person, but two parcels, and they're operated as one. In addition to that, the one that's just to the north is mine and my husband's, 2 parcels, both owned by us, operated as one. Across the road from there to the north, 2 parcels operated as one. So when you look at the map, I mean, that can definitely be deceiving and isn't exactly as it first appears. Let's see. The residents that are located to the north and the west of the properties in question are simply houses that replace the original homesteads from the larger parcels surrounding them. These are not new residential splits. These are simply replacing the houses from the original homestead. So in summary, the lots being proposed are in fact not similar to the existing properties in the area, and the present agricultural zoning is accurate and is indeed indicative of the actual use of these properties. The approval of the land use amendment in this case would indeed change the identity of the entire area, and as a relatively recent property owner and the farming characteristics of the area are what drew our family to it. This would have a dramatically negative effect on the area. In closing, I'd like to be clear that I am extremely concerned about the precedents that approving this change would set. This would inevitably open the floodgates, and in return, Olmsted County would lose valuable agricultural land that we will never get back. These neighbors take that very seriously, and I respectfully ask that you do as well. One other thing I just wanted to touch on really quick. Please consider the fact that this development, a development like this, it's hard to say that the people that would eventually live there would be understanding to the agriculture that comes with it. A few other people have touched on that tonight, but to say that you know, we all live out there and we understand and we take into consideration what comes with the livestock, what comes with the cropland. I'm just not sure that people who are interested in a development like this will be as considerate, which will eventually, I fear, lead to a lot of problems. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Alan? Alan here? I apologize, I cannot quite make out your last name. I'm not sure.
Hi, my name is Al Hartman. I live at 320 65th Avenue Southeast, Rochester. So I'm the second small parcel below the property in question. I have several things I want to mention. One is in the past, Mr. McGuire has indicated that the reason he wants to put this subdivision in there is for his family and friends. And I want to make the point that we have no guarantees that in fact is going to be the case. Once it's there, he can sell those lots to whomever. He could even sell the entire property to somebody, another developer, once the zoning gets changed. So the fact that, you know, he wants empathy that it's for family and friends does not hold any water, because there's no guarantee that that's going to maintain. Even if he did start that way, eventually those houses are going to get sold to people that are not family and friends. In regard to those small parcels, those were all split prior to zoning. So G Cubed wants to make you think that, you know, those are all similar to these small lots that you're going to put in there. They're not. They're all ag properties. Everybody files a Schedule F. They're all zoned ag. You compare that to the property that you just approved a little bit ago. You look at that property, that's an infill property, no question about it. You got small lots to the west, you got Chester to the east, that's strictly an infill, no problem. You go up there, that is a standalone property and does not fit the criteria. That is spot zoning, and plain and simple. So those are the points that I wanted to make. Thank you
very much.
That completes the list.
That completes the list.
on that list, I was on there.
Yeah, sure, you can add your name to the list.
Yeah.
Because I was going to ask if there's anybody else that
You don't
wants
have to
to
write
speak.
it down.
Anybody else that wants to speak for or against?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm actually John McGuire that started this whole mess. I live at 1 mile north of that property. I live at 6877 Silver Creek Road, northeast Eota, Minnesota. The thing I want to clarify from one thing from Christie's
deal is there's actually not 10 lots, there's 9. And we were not able to turn in our general development plan, and it would have showed that. And the 8 acres to the side is actually going to be a tree farm. The other issue with that was she called it a township road. It's not going to be a township road. I'm not asking the township of Marion for any assistance. I'm not asking for any plowing. I'm not asking Olmsted County for any roads. This will all be a private development. I'm quite insulted by the suggestion that I'm going to sell this off, because for the people of you that don't know me, I've been and operated a business in Chester for 50 years, since 1972. I've lived the last 23 years within a mile of this property. My daughter, my son, my wife, everybody are the 5 acres, or the 5 people that G Cube said. Them 25 and 35-year-old kids are going to be there a long time. Probably my granddaughter is going to get my wife and ours house. So, I mean, this legacy issue flies in Haverhill, but they're trying to apply the same Haverhill attitude to Marion Township, and it just don't work. Please approve this. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that wants to speak for or against? You come up and give us your name and your address, please.
Hi everyone, my name is Tiffany Lawler. I live at 1668 Wilshire Drive Northeast. You've met my spirited and passionate husband, Joseph. And I just want to reiterate that innovation is something that we talk about in moving forward, and the city growing, and that eventually in 20 years we may be there. But we have a lot of farming innovation that my husband is developing and researching along with the state of Minnesota to really make Rochester and all of its beautiful cropland so much more productive, so much more regenerative, so much, all of these, the stewardship project. I mean, you think he's passionate in here, you should see him in a field. I'm very scared at what this 35-acre zone change could mean for our community in this particular area. They say it's just 35 acres, sorry, 34.99, and that it's just a drop in the bucket. But drops make ripples. And I'm just asking that you and everyone on the board consider that this is so much bigger than us, and it is so monumental for the future of everybody on that area. And I want my children to know this area as it is as ag. I want them to be able to see how dark that soil is, and I want them to know how hard their dad fought for what he believed in. Thank you very much.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Is there anybody else that wants to speak for or against? Yes, sir. Come up and give us your name and your address, please.
Ethan Huffschulte, 4835 Silver Creek Road, Northeast. I live in the area a little bit further away than everybody else. I didn't come here prepared to talk to anybody or come up here, but this is the first one of these things I've been to. I'm here, you know, it is prime farmland, and the map does misrepresent the area. It's not suburban, it is prime farmland. This is the definition of what the protection was put into place for this kind of land to keep it from being developed and, you know, for future generations. So I urge you to vote no on the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience that wishes to speak for or against? Is there anybody else who wishes to speak for or against? Is there anybody else who wishes to speak for or against?
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second that motion.
All right, motion is second to close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, all opposed, say no. Motion carries. All right, now it's the board's decision to make a motion.
Well, I'd like a little discussion. I've supported this proposal in the past, and I intend to support it moving forward because nothing has changed in my mind other than we got more information that made this development more favorable, this parcel more favorable for development by our own rules. So in my mind, I don't know how we vote one parcel in to be developed by our own rules and then deny another that scores higher. If we're going to do that, we're setting a precedent where we just don't bother scoring. We just decide by looking at it, which other counties do. But we've invested in Olmsted County for decades now in this clues model, and it seems like we're throwing it out in our recommendations on this one. And I want to know, I appreciate all the passion and all the arguments. This is not personal, and I'm sure you all hate me right now just for supporting something you don't support, but this is what we're elected to do, is to make hard decisions. Next decision, you might be in favor of what I'm deciding, but this one, that's my feeling. So on that, I'll make, even just to have discussion, I'll make a motion to approve this LUPA.
All right, so we have a motion to approve. I need a second. I need a motion to a second. All right, so the motion fails for lack of a second. So I need another motion.
Nope. I move.
I would make a motion to deny the proposal as presented.
All right.
Second that motion.
And I have a second. All right, so now, is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, just, these are tough decisions. At least the way I fall, at least on this one, is that the contiguous nature of the past, the Meyer proposal, albeit it had some environmental concerns that I will remain concerned about. There's not the locational situation on this one that existed with the other one, be it the fact that the other one basically met up with or abetted the adjoining housing developments. It's more of a cluster of residential developments down in that area as opposed to this one, which stands, to me at least, more starkly amongst farmland.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Yes.
I would just say that I agree with everything Commissioner Sinjum just mentioned, and sincerely appreciate all of you coming out tonight to let us know how you feel about this decision and for bringing these maps to life. Because without the public comments that we heard tonight, we would not have the clear understanding that we do about the parcels that are surrounding the proposed land, and have a much greater understanding of how that would impact the community. And that is something that we need to take into consideration, and along with our staff recommendations.
Okay. Is there anything, any other? All right. Just before we vote, somebody always walks away from these meetings disappointed. It's just the nature of the process. It doesn't mean that there can't be a change and that Mr. McGuire can come back at another time, or whoever owns the land can come back at another time. So just everybody be prepared that, it's never the end. There's always another process. I do appreciate the passion that people have showed, and thank you very much for keeping your comments calm. To Mr. McGuire, I know that this is, I think, your third time here, and unfortunately, the county has changed the rules every time that you've come. Last time it was traffic, this time that the traffic got fixed, and then it was agricultural land, which wasn't on the last time. So I I'm regretting the fact that in some sense the goalposts have been changed for you. All right, with that, we will vote all in favor. Now, the motion is to deny, so if it's a majority vote, then Mr. McGuire's application is denied. All right, so all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Wait, hold on a second. I'm not clear about what yes or no means. Can you
All right,
clarify?
yes, I can clarify. So if you vote aye, you're voting to deny the application. So then now Mr. McGuire's application does not move forward.
Thank you.
All right, so now let's vote again. All in favor say of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no.
No.
And chair votes no. So it is a 4-2 vote, so Mr. McGuire's application is denied. All right?
We still got a county board meeting in front of us.
Yes, and we have another county board meeting, so we're going to move the agenda. All right, so we're moving to the consent agenda. Okay. We're going to give just a few minutes for people to leave, so so why don't we just take a 5-minute recess for On the consent agenda, we have one additional item, resolution 2333. And that would be letter I. And I know that Kay is in the room, so I'm just going to ask a question about this. My understanding is that this is a federal government grant that we have to have our application in before the next meeting, and that's why it's on the consent agenda. And we're asking for 25 million?
40.1.
42.1. Oh, well, that's really good. I'm glad that you're finally asking for money. You know? Thank you very much. And this is part of the RAISE grants program. I'm sorry, I don't know what RAISE stands for, but it probably stands for a lot of money coming from the federal government. All right, so with that then, the consent agenda is to approve the February 7th, 2023 minutes, the lease of the Lake Zumbro dredge spoils site with Olmsted, Wabasha, Lake Zumbro Joint Powers Board, letter C, Mississippi River, Winona, La Crosse Watershed Implement Joint Powers Agreement, letter D, Olmsted County 2023 Federal Legislative Priorities, letter E, vehicle purchase for the Sheriff's Office, letter F, abate 2022 property tax due to disaster, letter G, to appoint Commissioner Wright to the 2023 Anoka County Juvenile Center Advisory Board, letter H, update contracts for the Deputy Sheriff's Association, LEC, Deputy Sheriff's Association, ADC, and the Sheriff's Office support staff, ADC and ADC sergeants. And then letter I is to approve the resolution 2333, which allows us to apply for the grant.
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda.
Second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries. All right. We now go to the informal agenda items, and letter A is the Olmsted County History Center will provide us with information. There he is. Mr. Ganaway is ready to speak to us. Thank you very much, Mr. Ganaway.
Sure, thank you. Thank you for inviting me this evening and for the county board's continued support of the History Center of Olmsted County. Am I able to share my screen to show
Sure.
a few pictures?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, we can see it now.
Okay, terrific. So the first thing I'd like to say, in addition to, once again, thank you for your support for the History Center, is that we are reaching or approaching our 100th anniversary, which really is remarkable to me to be part of an organization that's been around for nearly 100 years. We, of course, were founded by Bert Eaton, who was an early attorney here in Olmsted County. We started off in downtown Rochester, but there was a strong desire in the 1960s to tell the agricultural story of Olmsted County, and that's why we moved to our current location. So we view our 100th anniversary, we view this milestone as an opportunity to celebrate our longevity, but also to take stock and to prepare for the future so that the History Center can be around for another 100 years. First, it's important to know that we believe the History Center is the county's cultural legacy. And we collect artifacts, photographs, documents from throughout the county, from every township. And this map shows you the number of artifacts that we have from each of the townships. And although the way we collect has changed over the years.
You have to advance the slide because we're still looking at the cover slide, the first one.
Okay. Let's see.
I think you want page 2. You have to go to page 2. There you go. Now we see it.
Okay, got it. Yeah, so you can see on this map, the numbers indicate how many artifacts from each of the township. And because history doesn't stop, we continue to collect artifacts, photos, documents from every township and city in the county. And stewardship and public access is one of our core missions. We provide public access to our research library and our archives, as well as our artifacts. What you don't see here is the robust presence that we have on social media. We have thousands of followers, and we share hundreds of historic photographs and stories every year. And each of them are curated by our staff. But in-person education is my favorite part of our job. And we are proud to serve all types of audiences, including longtime residents, multi-generational residents of Olmsted County, as well as new residents, folks from all over the world. And I believe our work is nothing short of citizen education, in that we teach adults and kids and students about things like the 19th Amendment, treaties and Native Americans, and actually townships as well. But agricultural heritage and immigration heritage is why we are here at our current location in Southwest Rochester. And we are marking another milestone, that is 50 years on the farm. We have been here at our location since 1973. And the reason we came here was because of the Stoppel farmstead. That is the George Stoppel farmstead, one of the few intact 1860s farmsteads in our region. And we built our History Center here. We built it for the purposes of being compatible, fitting in with the character of agriculture and the Stoppel farmstead. And we have actually started rehabilitating the George Stoppel farmstead in fall of last year. So just a quick update on that rehabilitation. We started with the smokehouse. I believe most of you may be aware of it. First of all, the smokehouse is a very rare building indeed. Historians have said there are few, if any, precedents or peers in our region. And I challenge you to find one that is like it anywhere in our region or maybe even in the state. But we were fortunate to get a $237,000 legacy grant last year. We matched it with individual donations and contributions from corporations as well as foundations. And the work will be completed in May. That will be the first of the 3 buildings to rehabilitate. And we will be making good on a promise to rehabilitate the farmstead. But it won't stop with the smokehouse. We are also going to be rehabilitating the bank barn. And then in 2026, we will be working on the stone house, as well as building accessible walking paths, exhibits, a classroom in the barn, and hands-on programming. And I should say that we, because we're, first of all, it's a National Register building, and because we are using legacy funds, we are using the highest standards of historic preservation. So not only is it high quality, some of the best quality construction work, but it's also well-paid construction work and is contributing to the economic vitality of our county. But frankly, we've done repairs on the farmstead in the past without fully activating the site. So I challenge myself to say, okay, how are we gonna make this active and like attract people to the farmstead? Well, we wanna take a very thoughtful intention and an intentional approach. So we've begun what we call interpretive planning. And we've engaged in this interpretive planning process members of the community, from the immigrant community, the Native American community, and the agricultural community as well. And as we move through our interpretive planning process, we will continue to engage with these different groups of folks from different parts of the community to make sure that we're telling an authentic story. The first phase of our interpretive planning really established the goals that we want to achieve. The phase 2 part, which is happening now, we will take those goals and put them into action. In other words, what are the programs? What are the specific experiences that will bring the story to life? And what the slide you're seeing is an example of a interpretive plan at the Shakopee Riverfront Cultural Trail. It'll have different, just like ours will, it has different experience zones. But it's really important. These goals are very important to us because they are setting our North Star for how we are going to activate this site. So the first operational goal is that the George Stoppel Farmstead will bring a range of community members together to build cross-cultural understanding among those who live and visit in Olmsted County, providing opportunities to explore differences through programming and exhibits. The farmstead will become an accessible local and regional destination that demonstrates the economic and social value of investing in place-based agricultural history in southeastern Minnesota, as well as developing a stronger relationship to the indigenous community. And I think this is really important to emphasize: accessible. We are literally on the edge of Rochester, one leg in Rochester, one leg in the county. And that makes us very accessible for kids in the city to learn about a farm if they aren't able to get to one that is in reality a farm. Another operational goal is, following the rehabilitation, the George Stoppel Farmstead will increase use and maximize efficiency in space planning for staff and visitors. And to this point, we're talking about the entire property. We are really planning on extending this plan to the entire property and maximizing the programmatic value and activating our entire property, more so than you've seen in the past. Now, visitor experience. What do we want the visitor to experience here? As they explore the farmstead, we want visitors to feel a sense of belonging to Olmsted County. And let me pause here a moment to say that we live in a very dynamic county. There are residents who are longtime residents. There are people who just stay here a handful of years. And there are new Americans, immigrants, and refugees who come to our county to put down their own roots. And we view the Stoppel Farmstead as that place where there is a shared sense of belonging, because the stories we are going to tell speak to that value. And because that is the value we are looking to embody, regardless of their ethnic or cultural background, visitors will feel pride in their own family history and traditions, each with their own unique challenges and adversities to overcome. And not all of the adversities will be as dramatic as the Stoppel family, who, according to family legend, lived in a cave for their first winter. Nevertheless, immigrants coming today also face adversities. This is a common shared heritage. We also want visitors to be able to get away from the hustle and bustle of everyday life. Visitors will be able to slow down and feel present as they try new activities on the farm and have fun with their families and friends and explore new perspectives on the landscape. And by the way, there is real scholarship and research that shows that museums and historic buildings, gardens, actually promote mental health well-being within the community. And we're excited to use that scholarship and research to make our programs so that they can actually improve our community's well-being and not just make them smarter. But we also believe that behind these goals, and in order for any endeavor really, but particularly this one to succeed, we need a big idea, a key theme. And ours is to cultivate a sense of belonging through the land. According to the focus groups that we've spoken to so far, the land is the common denominator. From the original Dakota peoples to the multi-generational farmers to the new immigrants who also want to farm. Land. It provides a sense of belonging. And that is our big idea, our key theme, that every tour, every program, every exhibit will speak to. And really, it's about a heritage of growing food. originally, when George and Franz Joseph platted this property and they bought it from the United States government in 1856, they were growing food for themselves at first and then later to as a cash crop. Today, MHRT, some of you may know, the Mechanical History Roundtable, for 50 years has been growing crops on our land. Soybeans you see here on the right, but also oats. They use that to support themselves, but also to educate the public about farming, and particularly farming in the early 20th century. But we're inviting new partners to come onto our property and to start a new generation of immigrant farmers with the Village Agricultural Cooperative. On the left, you see a photo of the gardens the food that they were growing last summer. And we're excited to have them back another year and look forward to, once again, this new generation of immigrants looking for access to land. And they are part of that continuing story, that heritage of agriculture. But it's also a story, a heritage of gathering together. And the village has been just terrific about starting a farmer's market here during the warm months, and it's been super well received. We want to take this same spirit to invite other partners to our land, other cultural institutions, and we're exploring different options for that. And really, in order to make sure that we're doing the best for the organization, for the community, and for this land, we will be engaging in some master planning that will have an eye toward inviting other partners, for example, cultural institutions, to be out here with us on this land, while at the same time preserving this agricultural heritage. So that's just a short piece about the History Center. And I would invite each of the commissioners to come to the History Center, find an artifact, a document, a photograph from your township, and we can explore the past of your township and maybe even talk about the future of it. Thank you.
All right, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Ganaway?
I have a comment, Mr. Chair.
Comment? Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Ganaway, this is Commissioner Podolsky Smith. I can't believe you didn't mention the sleigh rides, the horse-drawn sleigh rides coming this Saturday from 10 to 4 at the History Center. I mean, if only there was some snow.
Yeah, right? I'm not sure how I'm going to get home tonight.
Ride with Commissioner Tyne.
Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, and that goes for a doubly a good cause, because the proceeds of that go to the Special Olympics. And it's another way that we leverage our property to do good. And that's just a sliver of the benefit that we want to give the community. And I should note also, I'm really excited about a book talk that we have coming up in March, the end of March. It's called Mapping the Farm, and it's by John Hildebrand. He is a really terrific writer, and he married into an Olmsted County farm family from Marion, the O'Neills. And he really does this wonderful job of describing the history of the family and their struggles on the farm. And I would just recommend that you all come out and see this talk. And I think it'll give you another dimension to many of the issues that you were even wrestling with this evening, which was fascinating, by the way.
All right. Any other questions or comments? I do thank you for your leadership out at the History Center. You know, as a student of history, I keep reminding people that remember that history happens every day. It's not just something that happened 100 years ago, and everybody's making history every day. And that there are parallels between what goes on now and what goes on in the past. So the more that you know about the past, the more that you can understand what goes on now. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, letter B is the University of Minnesota Extension Program will provide us with information about their work in Olmsted County. So Lisa Dirks, you have information for us?
Good evening, Olmsted County Board of Commissioners, staff, and general public. I also am going to share a PowerPoint with you. Death by PowerPoint tonight. So let me just get it pulled up here. Okay. Let Lisa get it queued up on that
we
end.
can see it now.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. So a little different approach from Wayne's presentation about the History Center. I'm going to start off with a little bit about extension within the county and then talk about our programming. So did the slide advance? Thank you. So first of all, Extension's mission is to make a difference by connecting community needs with university resources to address critical issues in Minnesota. So in Olmsted County, we talk about linking with the strategic plan in the areas of assuring safe and healthy communities, as well as being good stewards of our built and natural environments. Within our connections between the university and Olmsted County, we have a memorandum of agreement, or known as the MOA. Within this contract that we do every 3 years typically, it outlines what the county provides in the relationship and what the university provides. And so the county provides funding that supports our departmental staffing and all the things that come along with having an office, space, furnishing, etc. The university provides the salary and the benefits for our positions, as well as the programming needs, supervision, etc. The current MOA between the Olmsted County and the university is $168,000. Our total budget within the county is a little under $207,000. Within our department, we have several staff members that you may connect with. We're out at the 1421 building. I serve as the regional director covering 12 counties in Southeast Minnesota. Christine Schwartz is our administrative support professional. And youth development, Christina is our full-time educator. And at the end of 2022, the county board approved an additional half-time position for youth development 4-H. And so I'm pleased to share that Micah Miller will be joining our team at the end of this, actually next week. Micah will work half-time for Olmsted County and half-time for Winona. She's been working for Winona for almost a year now, I believe. And so she will be launching in her Olmsted. Also within our department, 2 more programs. We have SNAP Education. So this is the part SNAP Benefits, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, is provided to recipients through public health. This is the educational component of SNAP. These educators are funded through federal dollars, but are housed out at our Olmsted County office. Milena and Kosar are there, and then we have a new staff person who will begin sometime this summer. And our last program within Olmsted County is our Master Gardener program. They are a volunteer managed group. Currently volunteer chair is Kelly Ray Kirkpatrick. So that's a little bit about who the staff are. We also have a extension committee. The committee consists of up to 9 members. So 2 members of the county board. Thank you to Commissioner Rossman for agreeing to serve on our committee. Also the county auditor or designee. And so Lisa there in the room also serves on our committee. And then 6 county residents are appointed to the county, it says by the county board. We currently have 2 open positions. And so we are seeking public members to serve on the committee. Real brief, what does the committee do? So supporting the program and advocating for extension services throughout the county. They assist in our annual county extension department budget requests. So they're the first part of the budget request that we then send forward to administration and finally to the board. And lastly, they identify local community needs and extension resources. So a little bit for extension programming highlights. I just want to acknowledge that earlier in this evening, the Lawlers mentioned the crop production and weed management research that happens on their farmland, but also the university has a connection with Olmsted County in some land that we lease for that research as well. We also have regional educators who work in community economics, working with Southeast Minnesota Together, as well as economic development across the region. And we'll be adding a leadership and civic engagement educator to our regional team here in the coming months to also provide resources. So those programs are all based out of our Rochester regional office. And so Olmsted County has the advantage of both a county office as well as a regional hub within extension services. So county specific though, so the Olmsted County Master Gardeners have over 100 Olmsted County residents who volunteer their time for community projects. They have done projects at the fairgrounds. They have projects out at the History Center. On the slide, you can see the priorities for their program. Master Gardeners complete an internship and then provide education to public members through direct education, such as being at the community garden and speaking to people directly about maybe there's some bugs on their tomatoes or how do they do weed management in their garden, to also indirect education, such as might be signage. So they might assist with a community garden and then have signage about what the types of plants are and how they can educate people without somebody physically being there. So in the last 4 years, gardening has really taken off, especially kind of pre-COVID, and then as COVID and the pandemic roll out, they've had 74 people apply to be interns within their program, and so that has been a great growth for them. They also have been working on new projects. And so in the last couple of years, they've expanded project areas to Oxbow Park, as well as into Orinoco, the farmers market. They're back at the county fair doing education each day at a booth there as well. And they've also engaged with social media on how to get word out to members of the public to learn about gardening and the natural environment. The program that is the largest in Olmsted County is our 4-H program. At the end of last 4-H year, which would have been September 31st of 2022, there were 539 youth from Olmsted County involved in the program with 135 volunteers. We can't do the work that we do without the volunteers that we have. And at that time, there was one 4-H educator. And as I mentioned, we are increasing that to 1.5 educators. But last year alone, they had 232 new members involved in 4-H. And so I think many of us, when if we are familiar with 4-H, the first thing that comes to mind is the connection between the 4-H program and our county fairs. The county fairs is definitely the showcase where our youth are able to take what they have learned and then be able to share it with others, whether that's with the judge or the public as they walk through the barns and the exhibits. But a couple things that some of you heard about these from Christina last year, but I just wanted to pull out again that we have within the 4-H program, our youth are involved as active citizens. And so there was a 4-H club in Olmsted County that found some mystery snails in a waterway, and they worked with some researchers and a grant and found out ways to remove those invasive snails from their natural environment. So definitely an experience for those youth on not only learning, but also then becoming leaders to help make a change in their community. And another program that Christina was involved in is the Stewartville Middle School had some concerns about ATV safety, and so they had reached out to Christina, and she led a ATV safety day for 8th graders at the middle school to help them learn about ATV safety. And finally, the last program in Olmsted County that I want to mention is our SNAP Ed program. Again, this is nutrition and physical activity education funded through federal dollars, but they do both direct education. So that might be a cooking class with participants or being out at the gardens and helping people with, now that you've grown tomatoes, what else can you do with them besides eat them raw? To actually doing more of policy systems work. So working with Channel One, food shelves, on how can we set our environments within those spaces to be welcoming, to have healthy food be kind of the first choice, and to set other environmental and policy changes within their spaces to meet the needs of their clients. So I know that was very rapid, but I'm going to stop sharing and open it up for any questions.
Anybody have any questions? Commissioner Rossman, you're on this board. Have you provided any advice for them?
Well, I had actually served on the extension committee as a community member for several years.
Okay.
So have a lot of experience with this group and look forward to joining it again now in a very different role. Tremendous work done through this committee. Obviously, I'm a 4-H'er and I have 3 sons who are in 4-H, so support that greatly. But it's been great to understand all the impact they have through SNAP Ed and these other programs also. So lots of growth in all the programs. So pretty exciting things happening there.
So it used to be that 4-H was just for the farm kids. So how many urban kids approximately have you seen grow into 4-H?
Yeah, so you are correct that it used to be just the farm kids. And so I don't have an exact statistic for Olmsted County. However, we have many urban-based kids involved in 4-H, whether that's in non-livestock areas such as photography or sewing or those types of things, but also we have the ability now for youth to be able to lease animals. And so you could be someone who lives in the middle of Rochester and lease a market steer from somebody who lives outside of Rochester city limits and be able to bring that to the fair to share your learning.
That's interesting. So can I lease a guinea pig or something like that?
We currently don't have a guinea pig livestock
I'm sorry, that
species,
was just
but
a
if you're
humorous question.
interested, we could,
Didn't deserve an answer, but thank you. But I know that the extension does other things, and I know that with the Master Gardener program, that's really important for new immigrants, especially those that came from areas where they didn't farm and they don't know anything about growing, but they can grow their own vegetables now, and they can get soil from Olmsted County to put in their backyard to make that. So do we also have, along with that, a canning food preservation program to help them preserve their vegetables that they grow?
Yep. So the Master Gardener program has, as you just mentioned, has done growing, but now they are training their volunteers on how to teach food preservation safely to people, and then offering that sometimes in community ed, sometimes at a maybe a specific senior living center, maybe let's say asks for them to come in. So yep.
That's great. So I noticed that the extension program also has a naturist, or naturalist probably program. So I just want you to let you know that I have somebody in my family that just signed up for that for $300 to become a naturalist volunteer. So thank you for that program as well.
That is wonderful. There's actually 6 classes for Master Naturalists that will be held across Southeast Minnesota this spring and summer. So
and there's only very few places left to sign up for that, for the one that's going to be at Oxbow in Chesterwood. So
it
how
goes
about
quick.
Well, thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, just a question.
Yes.
Lisa, thank you for your presentation.
You bet.
My question is, are you sort of the point of contact for us to the University of Minnesota? And I'm thinking like specifically of like the CERTS program that has to do with
Right.
renewable
Clean
energy,
energy.
and that sort of resource. Do they work through you, or would we otherwise
Yep.
just work with the university directly?
Yep. I serve as your contact from the county to the university,
Okay.
no matter what it's in, whether it's extension or anything else. So we try to make it easy for you that you know one name and I get you to where you need to be within the university. So happy to be that contact. Yep.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you very much for your presentation. Much appreciated.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, so letter C is going to be moved to the next meeting because we got so late and they have backed out tonight. So they will put them on a future meeting. And so now I'm going to, before we have board committee reports, I'm going to ask for a vote on the volunteers and a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve all 3 volunteers. They're wonderful.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the 3 volunteers that you've heard from tonight, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say no. Motion carries, so please inform them that they have been accepted for their committee assignments.
Mr. Chair, just a follow-up question. So we had 6 vacancies out of 13 members. Does that just reflect people going off or
Yep.
term limiting
Yep,
or whatever it
they
is?
either termed out or they moved away or
Okay.
they decided that they would end there.
Thank
So,
you.
yep. Very good. All right, so we have, we're at the point of board and committee reports. So we'll start to my left. Commissioner Senjum, do you have a board or a committee report?
Just the Washington agenda, several of us were able to attend the NACO meeting. I just found it thoroughly interesting, enjoyable, educational. I got wrapped up in the Environmental Energy Committee and met a lot of new people, and you just pick up a lot of information. And then just beyond that, as a member of the History Center, I represent this board at the History Center. Wayne probably didn't. I'll just say this. I'm pretty excited about it. They have a really good board. We've had a day and a half long planning conference a week or so ago. I did help them put together some legislative language. They are pursuing, he didn't mention this, but a $2 million legacy proposal before the legislature to fix up that Stoppel Farm, and hopefully we can get that done. And so it's really a positive environment out there. And I was on that board in the 90s as a city council member, and it wasn't as positive.
Thank you. Commissioner Podolsky Smith.
I do have a couple of highlights. I also attended the National Association of Counties, the NACO conference last week, along with some of my fellow commissioners here. And the Olmsted County legislative delegation, which I was a part of, had an opportunity to meet with Senator Klobuchar, staff from Senator Smith's office, and staff from Representative Finstad's office. We discussed Olmsted County infrastructure priorities, including the materials recovery facility, the Highway 14 interchange, the Graham Exhibition Center, and a policy change that would ensure a continuity of health care for justice-involved individuals who are detained pre-trial. I was very impressed. It was my first time attending those discussions, and I was impressed with the conversations. I thought they went very well, and our legislative analysts, along with Commissioner Cascaden, represented Olmsted County with excellence, and I know everyone looks forward to continuing the relationship with our federal delegation.
And one other issue that came up at both the Health, Housing, and Human Services and Human Services Advisory Board, both of those boards I sit on, is regard to what will be an end to eSNAP, and I'll put a little context around that. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Minnesota received a waiver from the federal government to temporarily provide extra supplemental nutrition assistance benefits known as emergency SNAP or eSNAP. The temporary increase boosted households' monthly benefit to the maximum allotment for their household size. Or if they were already getting the maximum amount, households received an additional $95. Federal officials have declared the COVID-19 pandemic emergency, have declared an end of the emergency, and so SNAP allotments will end after February. And so staff are concerned about the abruptness of the ending of this federal assistance. They expressed, they had hoped that the transition would be softer or just easier on families, and they anticipate an abrupt end to eSNAP benefits or the maximum benefits to be rough for some families. So it's something to appreciate and just be aware of.
Thank you. Commissioner Tyne.
Well, last week I went to an oats producers meeting put on by our Saltwater Conservation District, and there were 40 farmers there. And then today I learned that our soil conservation project that we funded between $3 to $5 million is going well. We've got 6,700 additional acres of cover crops signed up, with almost double that pledged without funding, and we're going to double the amount of oats so far with that program just started we're at 1,170, which doubles the amount of small grains that we're planting in this county as compared to last year. So far it's a big success, so I'm happy to report that. At our last DMC meeting, just want to report that the Soldiers Field project, which will improve the Soldier Field facilities, was approved, and it's a $21 million project, and only $7 million of it comes from local funding, and all of that will be funding that was approved by a referendum by residents of Rochester. So they're getting 2/3 of the project paid for by other funds, which is a pretty good deal for residents of Rochester.
So I understand that the soil and water project that we started here in Olmsted is being carefully looked at by the United States Department of Agriculture as a great project that maybe can be duplicated in other areas.
That's correct. That's what I'm told.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Just another one of Olmsted leading not only the state but the nation. So we'll see how that works out. All right, Commissioner Mueller.
I don't have a report.
Very good, Commissioner Rossman.
One thing from our meetings today, from our HHH committee meeting, we were asked to approve a proclamation for March being Social Worker Month. And as it was described to us, previously these used to come to the board, now they come through our committees. And what was tremendous was that staff today, 5 of our 250 social workers that we employ in the county. Interesting, I had no idea we had that many social workers in the county. We had the opportunity today to hear from 5 of those staff and understand the impact that they are making daily for citizens in our county. Mm-hmm. Everything from 2 women from working with victim services, and then our community outreach specialists, and truly the impact that they have on very dark days for citizens of our county. And it was just so incredible to, first of all, put faces with those workers who are making that impact every day, but hear the passion and commitment and that they have for their jobs and what they're doing. So it was brought to life for those of us who were able to hear that during committee. And I know that our communication staff is continuing to try to understand how we bring those stories to life so that those tremendous programs can be better understood by everyone in our county, and how those programs just continually really make an impact for the citizens of Olmsted. So that was just a really, really great committee meeting for me today.
Very good, thank you. I just want to add that, you've heard from some of the commissioners that they have gone to the national organization, counties organization, and some of us will be at the Association of Minnesota Counties tomorrow virtually because of the snowstorm that we're having. We will not meet in person. But I want to emphasize the fact that the reason why we go to these meetings is to bring back ideas that we can act on and make things better in Olmsted County. And so sometimes you hear that we go to a meeting and you think that it's entertainment, but in fact, even though we enjoy it there, we are learning a lot of things that we bring back. And it's for the benefit of the county. So, thank you very much.
Can I just amplify on that? I went to a GIS meeting out there expecting just to see maps and topography and things like that. And the power of this GIS system in terms of analyzing all kinds of data within your county is just enormous. And maybe some of the veteran members here know about all this, but I had never seen that before in terms of what an analytical tool that is.
Right.
Way beyond just mapping.
Right. Ben left already, but he would be able to speak to that. But the only thing that's holding us back from getting more information from GIS is staffing. So we added a staff to them just recently, but yet we have many demands on GIS. And the Olmsted County Board did foresee the usefulness of GIS, and so we voted to increase the level of information that we can get from GIS. We were at, isn't that what it was? Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, we actually, I think what the chair is trying to get to is that we have a licensure that's enterprise-wide. And we did that some years ago. And that means that we can have as many staff as we want to have access to ArcGIS. Esri is the name of the company that supplies most of the GIS software for most companies. We do a lot of GIS work. I would say that it's not just a matter of staffing, it's a matter of really understanding how analytics, what the capability of the analytics are. Because it isn't really, we don't need people just to put dots on a map. We need them to understand, okay, we could actually analyze crime compared to poverty on a map, or public health issues compared to housing stock. So I would submit that I absolutely agree. Of course, I started my career as a GIS analyst, which you may or may not know. But so I know more than the average bear. But I would say there's a lot. Commissioner Sasanjum is right. There's a lot more we could do.
Thank you very much.
The theme of this conference or that particular session was how do you locate where your electrical car chargers ought to go. And it was all about GIS.
Yeah.
And they use that tool to tell you that.
Right. All the story maps that you get from our reports come from our GIS department. So, all right. Very good. Well, thank you very much. All right. We appreciate that. Mr. Late Time, do you wish to close the meeting?
I can make a motion to close this meeting at 8:44 p.m.
I assume there's a second. We are adjourned.
We had 0 meetings when I was king that lasted this late.
Thank you, Sheriff, for